Good morning, everyone, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Welcome to our South Carolina guests and all the people that have been a big supporter of Trulite over time. My name is Ron Seftick. I am the CEO of Trulite. There we go. We are an early stage company located here in Columbia, South Carolina. Moved our operations here from a couple of different locations in Houston and in California over the last few years, and have started our build out of our product here in fuel cells and fuel cell technology. It's kind of ironic to actually stand here today inside of Flextronics because I actually go back a long way with Flex. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, I had a company that I was building up and starting up a Southeast Asia operation in Singapore. And we located in a facility that ironically was a block away from where Flextronics was building. And we ended up doing some supply work for them of their backup power generation system. Kind of interesting story about Flextronics back in the late 80s, early 90s is they were once a small company. In fact, they were funded by Sequoia Capital. Back in the early 90s, they had some interesting challenges as they went through a takeover, and they were trying to grow their business. I guess the interesting part about that is sometimes what goes around comes around. And I'd like to share with you a comment that was made by the CIO of Flextronics recently at a conference in Berkeley, California. And all of the peer groups of different CIOs from different Fortune companies were there talking about how do we build our future, just coming off of a very strange economy as we've all felt the pain of the last 3 years. And the words are very simple. It says that, if there's one thing a CIO can do, is to be seen as a strategic leader, is to keep tabs on emerging technology and to get out and meet capitalists and startup companies. I have to tell you, startup company is kind of a misnomer, and we have to be a little bit careful here. And we're going to talk about that in a second before we get into Trulite and then the Flextronics. But I think the next message is kind of compelling because the world is changing so fast that you can't always wait for the Fortune companies to come out with the next product. That a huge number of products today and technologies are really being developed by small entrepreneurial companies. Companies are just getting started. And Flextronics has a vision to be a part of that. We heard it in a lot of the presentations. I wish I had part of Marty's presentation back up there and Marcio's, because it's very much in line with where Trulite is and why Trulite is here today. So, but let's go into a little bit here to talk about, why would a Flextronics want to get involved with a startup company? Different types of startups. Let me back up for a second. A startup can be defined as an early stage company, but not all startups are alike. So you have an early startup might be someone who has an idea, a concept, something they want to develop that hasn't been proven out yet. And then you go all the way to where they've gone through the venture capital part of their business, the funding part, and they're into the private equity, and they're already at the point where they're starting to execute on customer orders and things like that. But not all of those are applicable for Flextronics. For instance, some startups are involved more in possibly doing a mobile app for something. A Facebook is not going to be, or an early Facebook is not going to be a great client for Flextronics. However, when is there a company that is involved in a sector that is important to Flextronics, where all of a sudden all the moons just sort of align, where everyone gets together and you say, well, this is just a perfect opportunity for not only the EMS side, but also for us as a customer side. We're going to talk about that, but I want to talk about, sometimes those startups also have to be meeting a need and being able to fill certain gaps. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about filling gaps in how we get power today, how we utilize power, and what are the different types of power devices that we use. If you go down the left, you'll see, the grid is the most common. The grid is a great thing. It's been there for a long time. It's available all the time, other than a few brief outages, but it lacks portability. It lacks the ability to be used anywhere. We all use batteries today. We have them in our cars and our laptops and everything else. but we also know that they need to be recharged, and it sometimes takes a long time to recharge those. Marcio talked about solar and some of the issues with solar and wind, and that is the lack of availability of sunlight, the lack of availability of wind, that sometimes makes them not the best solution for a customer. And then we have generators. Many of you use generators or have seen them. The challenge is that they are noisy, they pollute, they are using resources that sometimes are not going to be available for our future generations. And that's where Trulite comes in fuel cells, because we tend to be a technology that can bridge the gap and the limitations of current technologies by being reliable and available, that has a relatively minimal upfront cost in the grand scheme of things, but more importantly, there's no noise, they're very agile, and there's no pollutants. Let's look at that more, because we tend to play more in the portable side, and talk about some of the technologies that are available out there today that we utilize. For instance, a generator. A generator, again, has very high noise level. There's a ton of emissions from a generator. They're not very efficient, 20% efficiency. Most internal combustion engines need to have major overhauls after a short period of time. And you can go down the list and see all the disadvantages of some of these technologies. Storage batteries that we use, and they can be anything from a lead acid battery to a nickel metal hydride to a lithium ion, have their challenges as well. Yes, there is no noise. There are no emissions, at least from the product when you're using it. They can go to a very low power range, but at the same time, they can run very hot. Their lifetime can be very short, and we've all seen some of the issues that have occurred recently with some of the battery technology that is out there. So now we end up with some technologies, and we're going to highlight Trulite a little bit about some of the benefits of having a technology that is relatively quiet, can be used indoors or outdoors. There are very high fuel efficiency, 60% plus. High energy density, high temperature tolerance, and again, there are not any polluting characteristics. The only byproducts of the product, in fact, a little bit of water vapor and heat when it's used. In fact, fuel cells may be the only technology that is available today or in the future that will mimic the lifestyles of the average consumer. We want things instantaneous, we want them filled immediately, and we don't want to wait 8 hours for a battery to recharge in an electric vehicle, for instance. And then you start looking at the cost. You know, one of the other things that people talk about is, well, yeah, it's a great new technology, but it's very expensive. Not everything has to be something that is not attainable and you have to look at it based upon the total cost of the energy that you're using. We're going to talk about we're not going to mention our customer by name that we share jointly, interestingly enough. But one of the things that is kind of interesting about the markets that we've entered into is that there is a revenue component, so that the cost parameter, the cost limitations become less of an issue for some of our customers. And even against other types of fuel cells, that the Trulite technology can be very compelling. We're going to see what that is in a second here. Well, what does that all mean? That all means there's a great market opportunity out there, because you can be a startup and you can be in the eyesights of a Flextronics, but unless there's a market that you can go into, okay, it's kind of useless. So what we have is kind of an interesting scenario here, where if you look at batteries as we use them today, yeah, they're very cost effective in things like cell phones and some of our PDAs and things like that. But as you start getting down into this area where a small generator and a UPS take off, they're not very competitive. In fact, I used to be vice president of APC, and I can tell you that a UPS is not a very cost effective means of producing power. Then again, you get into the internal combustion engine, and in an automobile, it's been refined over time, very, very cost competitive. But all of a sudden, you get down in here where people are looking at batteries, and batteries just aren't cost effective anymore. Not only that, but you sort of lack the opportunity to have them immediately available. This is a huge opportunity for a fuel cell and for a company like Trulite, and one of the reasons why we're here today. Not only that, but we tend to be a hybrid technology. We do have internal batteries and things like that allow the unit to be used as a UPS. It allows you to refuel without having to shut down. We can also partner with some of the other technologies that have limitations that Marcio talked about, and that is wind power and solar, to be able to use us whenever they are not available. This is a product that we have partnered with Flextronics to build for us. As you can see, it has a number of electromechanical pieces to it. It has an electronics nature to it. It is 100 watt, and it's being used for traffic surveillance and cameras in its initial product form. Interestingly enough, it happens to be, as I mentioned, a customer that we sort of jointly share, and that was truly coincidental in the end, but it sort of makes this relationship all that much more meaningful, and you'll see that when we start looking at the whole business model behind it. And you're going to see this product when you go out there, by the way. This is where it all started. This is our KH4. We did literally hundreds of beta units. This is the product that brought us here to South Carolina. It is also, you'll see it out there, I believe, on the table. But it is the one that really started it all, where we started looking at, where can this product be used, this unique portable power system. This one here happens to have you can do 120 volt AC, you can do 12 volt DC, you can do a 5 volt USB all in the same unit going forward, which makes it very portable, very flexible as a product offering. It's the fuel cartridges. We're manufacturing these out at the Midlands Tech Accelerator up in the Northeast. What's interesting about our fuel and the fuel cartridges is that we don't store hydrogen. Marcio talked about people needing to build big storage facilities for hydrogen to be able to use it. We create hydrogen on demand, so that we don't have a need for a big device. We create hydrogen through a chemical reaction that occurs within the cartridge, that water goes in one side and hydrogen comes out the other side on an as-needed basis, that then goes into the unit here to produce DC electrical power for our customer. So why are we here? How do we get really involved with Flextronics? Because that's the real reason why we're all here today, to talk about this unique company that we're sitting in right now and how they can help an early stage company. When you think of Flextronics and you think about most of their customers around the world, most of them are Fortune companies. It is a little bit of a departure for them to even be talking to such an early stage company as Trulite. But we are here because they do have a vision. They have a vision to get involved in some of the clean tech space. They have a vision to get involved with early stage companies that have a new compelling idea that they want to take into the marketplace. And if there's one thing that they have shown, and they have shown consistently throughout all the history, and the reason why Flextronics is as big as it is that they have shown that they can create value for both them as well as for their clients, and they do it very, very successfully. Let me tell you what we're doing, because I think it's kind of important to understand, where does the value come for a company like Trulite, and where does the value come for a Flextronics in getting involved with us? So how do they create value for Trulite? Okay, first of all, they have a local team. We are local, so our ability to interface with the Flextronics people on a daily and hourly basis is very easy, it's very simple. And so they provide an immediacy of response that we as an early stage company just can't do. They provide innovative outsourcing options for us. And when you look at a small company trying to get started, in fact, I will tell you that if you look at every small startup company that has failed, there are a few similarities between all of them. One of them is that they try to do all this themselves. They bear that cost and that burden themselves of trying to be a Flextronics when they should be focusing on their core technology and their markets. So Flextronics gives us the ability to provide an innovative outsourcing network, but more importantly also a global network of approved suppliers with the credit worthiness to be able to talk to them about a product. I mean, that's something that we as an early company just can't do. They have scalability of resources, both local as well as globally, that we can take advantage of. And that is something very important, is we are a technology within a technology. Our clients are Fortune customers, and they need to know that we have the ability to scale and meet their needs on a global basis. What better way to do it than a partnership with somebody like a Flextronics? They fill voids in early stage companies by providing things like indented bills of material for us, to looking at that and saying, here's a better way of doing this, here's a different, let us help you with putting together the true bill of material. We talked earlier about when Ron from Riverwoods talked about, sometimes the biggest problem that occur with a product is that one little hex bolt that is missing, that was missed in the bill of material or that was missed at delivery, and Flextronics obviously does a great job of pulling that all together. They have the experience to do that. Obviously, we can take advantage of years of work undertaken by this team in lean manufacturing techniques, in Kaizens, and things like that. That again, we just don't have those capabilities. So now we have the ability to walk to talk to our customers that we can do this. And maybe we can't do it internally. We can do it with our partners and become very successful at it. And then what's really unique about Flextronics and Trulite is that we actually share a number of customers and customer applications. If you go back to that chart that I think, I can't remember if it was Marcio showed or maybe even Marty in the beginning, our customers are customers that are building racks and servers. Think about every small network closet or server closet that is in every high-rise building that has a UPS that gives them 20, 30 minutes of runtime. But guess what? They lose power after that. They can't put in a generator. What if you could put a clean generator in those server closets? What if a Teradata could put a small fuel cell in a rack and give their client 24/7 uptime, 365 days a year? So we share a unique customer base so that as they're building out systems for customers, we can provide the power inside. So how do we create value for Flextronics? Okay, so I mean, obviously, we have the ability to come in, since we have similar products, and take advantage of underutilized resources within a facility. If you look at Flextronics, by working with a Trulite, they don't have to put on unique resources to meet our needs. They don't have to even hire any more people to meet our needs. That we can get absorbed as a small company internally within the organization at a very low startup cost. We can obviously, since we do share some customers, but we also have customers that are unique that might be very compelling to a Flextronics that we can bring to them at the same time. Obviously, we need to find compelling solutions to dwindling resources that are out there. And if Flextronics can then take on and live up true to their vision of being involved in the clean tech industry by not only just talking about it, but actually getting engaged with it and getting engaged with small, early stage companies. Again, we provide Flextronics with access to a certain customer base that they don't have today. And then our relationship locally becomes a great showcase to talk about, why we're here, about the great things that are being done in South Carolina, the great things that are being done in Columbia by South Carolina Research Authority, by SC Launch, by Midlands Tech, by all the different chambers of commerce and the economic development groups, about pulling together as a team, as a cohesive place to not only live and work, but also become successful. The other thing is that we have a very scalable product. You'll see it when you go out there. You saw it in the fuel canisters. So the ability is we develop new products for Flextronics to be there on the front, on the cutting edge, to really be there to get new products to market, to find new opportunities and new growth opportunities for them, not only here, but in other Flextronics locations. So essentially, we truly believe we have found a win-win combination for both organizations through this relationship. Again, we have a lot of similarity of customers that we do share. And then I want to end with talking again a little bit more about the partnerships that have been created down here to help companies like Trulite get started. I think it's a unique vision that has been created in South Carolina in creating a cradle to grave type mentality about, you know, keeping jobs here, building out more jobs, taking advantage of existing resources so that we can truly grow together. I did a survey yesterday for CEO Magazine where they were asking about the best cities and states to do business. And I have to tell you, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Chicago and worked in Chicago, in Singapore, and I would put Columbia and South Carolina against any of those in terms of vision and the ability to get things done. And when I look at Flextronics and the people here and what they can do and how they've worked with us in getting this product launched and building something that has real value, I commend them and I applaud the relationship, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about it today. So thank you.